Hello, this is Theolyn, and here I am again with the Bridge of Stars episode, planning, desiring, hoping that I can inspire you, because I always feel inspired when I put these episodes together. They lift my day when I make the recordings. We are walking across our bridge of stars. We use that metaphor because we are asking for starry help from the heavens. And yet we know that the heavens are reflected back to us in what we do every day. So we have to trust that our bridge is going to hold, whether it's made of wooden planks or stones. We have to keep ourselves grounded in worldly structures. We don't want to live with our head in the clouds, as people say, but we do want to call on heavenly inspiration from the skies. But the skies that we talk about are a metaphor for what is going on within us. And I've always found that the best use of the angel script is to allow it to speak to us from something that we already know deep inside ourselves. It's really not a predictive tool. It's a gateway. That's the best word for it. It's a vibrational gateway into something that you will already recognize when it comes to you. So the first character today, the only character today, today's character, try again. Today's character is called, where's it gone? Nun. And Nun is the past. And there's some really interesting things in the channeled message that I received all those years ago that's so suitable for how we're thinking about our lives at the moment. So look at this structure. That's a useful thing to do when you work with these characters. Look at the structure of it. There's a straight line, two orbs, one at the bottom, one at the top. And maybe that represents you, your feet on the ground, your head looking for wisdom. So maybe that's a person. And then there's a line going off to the side, which is pulled back by another orb of light. Or is it pulled back? Perhaps it's being supported by that orb of light, holding it up like a buttress on a cathedral, right? So we can think about that. And I'm going to read you the whole message because it's so useful for us at this time. The past holds and supports us. It can also hinder our progress. Yesterday is always behind us and only serves as a stepping stone for today. When we were in the day, yesterday, it was vibrant and dynamic, holding the promise of the next day. We have outgrown yesterday, as children outgrow their clothes, and we must discard the garments which no longer fit and take up the robe which now suits our needs. This is not to say that some garments cannot hang in the wardrobe. We may need to reuse a winter coat when the cold comes around again. We do not burn all our bridges behind us. In order to create and maintain a vision, we need forethought and preparation. We create a structure in which things may be manifested and develop. Like a building, our vision needs a foundation on which we can build with confidence. If we lay the keystone carefully, we can rely on it to support the present and the future. We do not keep returning to it, digging it up to check whether it's still intact. Sometimes a preoccupation with the past grows into a demon which will not allow us to move forward. Families, tribes, and nations can cling to outworn traditions which possess them in an iron fist, then they become prisoners of the past. The past is an ancient well from which the waters of life can be drawn. But if the well is not replenished, then the waters become stale and discolour the behaviour and the moral judgment of the present. We must maintain a constant state of awe in the face of time, but we must not be afraid to let go of the past and move forward. So I thought there were so many things in that reading that speak to us right now. We look back into the past, how it was, how we could go shopping, how we could go on holidays, fly to foreign countries, go and see beautiful landscapes different from our own. All those exciting things that were calling to us and became possible, because there was a kind of growth in the economy. And now, boom, somehow this has been taken like a rug from under our feet. But then we have time to say, well, was that past actually so glorious? What were we getting out of it? Did the economics of it mean that in order to do all those lovely things, we were sacrificing relationships? We were sacrificing time spent with small children who was being packed off to school and so forth, just because we could then go to work? We must ask ourselves these questions. What is there in the past that we would enjoy and can support us for the future? And what is in the past that really, like outworn clothes, needs to be discarded? If a child grows up and you buy new clothes for it, you can usually say, well, those clothes can be passed on to somebody else or go to a charity shop, but these are your new clothes because you're bigger. And we don't, get sentimental and hang their pretty little 3-year-old party frock in the cupboard, or the dungarees they wore when they were 5 or something, and say, oh, you were so charming when you wore that. Well, that's not the right way to go about it. It's not true that we should, I'm not suggesting that we should just take away all the souvenirs of our past, things that remind us of the story that we've been through. That is totally appropriate, and we can archive our letters, and then we can pass them down. Like in our family, we have letters from one of the young men who went to war in the Second World War, and his letters home have been saved by his nieces and nephews, and they can read them, and they're historical documents. So that's not I'm not saying, and I don't think this means that we just have to dismiss the past, but we have to allow it to be a buttress and not a restrainer, right? So think about your own past during this time and think about what you want to carry forward. I mean, some people do go through phases when they do have to just wipe the slate clean and forget about various chunks. Actually, those chunks never go away. So you may forget about them in your conscious mind, but they are part of your story. But just consider for yourself, as an exercise, what is there, shall we call it, BC, before coronavirus, and what do I want after coronavirus, AC? Think about that, and perhaps the concept of allowing your past to be a support and not a drag on your energy could be a really useful way of thinking about the past. So I hope that's really helpful for people at this time. Now I want to introduce you to the Archangel for Thursday. Let me find him for you. I'm going to call him him. I always like to remind people that actually archangels don't have any gender, but they certainly present themselves in with qualities that we associate with gender. So here we have Zadkiel. Can you see his name? Zadkiel. Zadkiel. So if I put my clip on it, you can't read it properly. That's right. So Zadkiel is for Thursday. The planet for Thursday is Jupiter. And Zadkiel is this resplendent, generous, all-encompassing, I think of him a bit like Father Christmas, actually. So he was cosmic, yes. Cosmic, yes. Samael was cosmic, no. Zadkiel's cosmic, yes. And he's very benevolent. In astrology, Jupiter is one of the benefics, along with Venus, who we spoke about a couple of days back, who is Raphael. So here we have this generosity of spirit, this inclusiveness, a lack of boundaries, because it wants to include everything and shine its light on everything. Because in the solar system, Jupiter has his own moons, so he's a very majestic character. And that's what the ancients recognized when they were developing the ideas about astrology. He's almost second to the sun. Zeus was, like in charge of Olympus. And his word was the real deal. And he was kind of so encompassing, of course, that perhaps there was a need to balance that by saying, hold on, we can't have everything all of the time. But when you see Zadkiel, when you come to Thursday, think of it as Jupiter's day and Zadkiel's day, you can remember that the universe is benevolent and it's supportive and there's a generosity in it. If you know, you probably do the 23rd Psalm, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And the psalm goes on to say that the person who's speaking to the divine says, I know that I will come to the green pastures, and that I will be fed abundantly, and my cup will overflow. This is Zadkiel. And Zadkiel's name means righteousness of God. And the Zad bit in it is also found in the name of an ancient priest called Melchizedek. So Zadkiel has that priestly quality, who can bring the communion, the wine and the bread, to celebrate life. L'chaim is what is said in a Jewish celebration. We celebrate life, and that is very much Zadkiel's call, to celebrate life. And actually, Zadkiel is also the Hebrew name for the planet Jupiter. So perhaps you're beginning to see, how that all-encompassing generosity of the divine is an ever-present quality. It's ever-present alongside all the other archangels. And if you want to find out more about the archangels, all of them, Zadkiel and the rest, then make sure you follow Path Working with Archangels, because you can access it at any time. Even if you did miss the beginning, you can just drop into it, because the videos will accumulate and then you can work through it at your own pace. So it will be there for you. Go to the website and find out how to download all the content that is completely free for you. So that's me being Zadkiel for today. It's a Zadkiel offering. It's an offering of generosity from the heart. That's what Zadkiel is about. The last thing in our session is always from the Bridge of Stars. And this is a really Zadkiel kind of book. Look at the blue and the gold and the red. Yum, yum. Let me find what I got today for you. This quote is from the Indian scriptures, the Upanishad. So those are about 2,500 years, roughly speaking. I don't think they can pinpoint exact dates, but they're certainly a long time before the Christian era. It's called The Spirit in My Heart, very suitable for Zadkiel. This is the spirit that is in my heart, smaller than a grain of rice, or a grain of barley, or a grain of mustard seed, or a grain of canary seed, or the kernel of a grain of canary seed. This is the spirit that is in my heart, greater than the earth, greater than the sky, greater than heaven itself, greater than all these worlds. This is the spirit that is in my heart. I think that's very much a Zadkiel kind of thing. It says all that grandeur and greatness. And several bits of it reminded me of other teachers and other mystics and poets. There's Jesus, who talks about your faith being like a grain of mustard seed. And then there's Julian of Norwich, who describes how she saw God as though in a tiny little kernel in a nut in her hand. And then there's William Blake, who says, find heaven in a grain of sand. So in the really tiniest particles and atoms of creation, the divine is there. And in the greatness and grandeur of the cosmos and all the galaxies, as we look up into the skies, that's where the divine is as well, and in our hearts. So stay joyful, many blessings, and I'll come back tomorrow.